All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a revolutionary off-grid cooling technology that actually generates up to 40 watts of cooling per square meter without using a single watt of electricity. I know, it sounds completely like science fiction, right? But we're talking about a simple $22 sheet of aluminum that harvests energy from the sky around the clock, even in total pitch black darkness. It doesn't need a breeze, it doesn't need sunshine, and it literally has zero moving parts. So today we're going to unpack exactly what this is, how the physics actually work, and why almost nobody in the off-grid community has ever been told this exists.
Just think about the sheer contrast here for a second. If you want to cool your home off the grid today, you're usually stuck with a standard window AC unit pulling up to 1500 watts, or maybe a mini-split system that's still draining hundreds of watts on its lowest setting. I mean, run that through a blistering summer in Arizona and you are burning through massive amounts of power. You'd need thousands of dollars in solar panels and these huge lithium battery banks just to keep up. Contrast all of that heavy, expensive gear with a $22 piece of aluminum that uses absolutely zero power. It kind of completely flips the economics of off-grid living on its head.
And this really puts the massive scale of our cooling problem into perspective. The International Energy Agency points out that cooling already eats up roughly 10% of all global electricity. 10%? And by 2050, that demand is projected to triple. But how is the HVAC industry responding to this? Well, basically by selling us slightly tweaked versions of the exact same compressor-based refrigerant loop that Willis Carrier patented way back in 1902. We are literally relying on 120-year-old technology to dig ourselves out of a rapidly escalating modern energy crisis. So, the obvious question we have to answer is, how on earth does a cheap, flat sheet of metal tap into the sky to give you free cooling? It goes against everything we intuitively know about metal, right? Usually metal just gets absolutely scorching hot in the summer sun. So how do we turn that assumption completely upside down?
Part 1. The physics of radiative sky cooling. Okay, to really grasp this, we have to recognize a fundamental truth of physics. Absolutely everything around you, your roof, your own body, even a hot cup of coffee, is constantly radiating heat outward as infrared light. That's exactly why your coffee cools down sitting on the counter, even if you don't blow on it. Normally, our atmosphere absorbs most of that escaping infrared heat and bounces it right back down to us. That's the greenhouse effect, and it's what keeps our planet warm enough to live on. But here is where the magic trick happens. Instead of getting trapped, infrared energy in a very, very specific band, between 8 and 13 micrometers, passes straight through the air and the clouds. The atmosphere is practically a wide-open, clear window for this specific wavelength of heat. So where does all that heat go when it escapes through that atmospheric window? It dumps directly into outer space. And outer space sits at a staggering negative 454 degrees Fahrenheit. That makes it the absolute coldest heat sink in the entire universe, and it is positioned directly above your roof, 24/7. So any surface that can strongly radiate heat in that specific 8 to 13 micrometer band is essentially pumping its heat straight out into deep space, entirely for free.
Part 2. Validating the science.
Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds way too good to be true. But this isn't just theory on a chalkboard. Let's look at how people have proven this actually works out in the real world. Believe it or not, ancient civilizations in places like India and Iran used shallow pools of water, totally exposed to clear night skies, to actually make ice, even when the surrounding air was above freezing. The water literally radiated its heat into space and froze solid. Fast forward a bit to 2014, and a team at Stanford University made a massive breakthrough. They created a structure that achieved this cooling in direct, blazing sunlight. By 2017, CU Boulder proved you could manufacture it cheaply, and then by 2019, a company called SkyCool Systems was actually deploying this tech on the roofs of commercial grocery stores.
And the data absolutely backs the whole thing up. Those 2019 rooftop panels in California successfully slashed tens of thousands of dollars off commercial refrigeration costs. What they did was mount these 0-watt panels right alongside the conventional AC units to pre-cool the refrigerant fluid. The result? They measured a verified 12 to 20% drop in electricity consumption. That is real-world money saved, literally pulled straight from the sky.
Which brings us to part 3, the suppressed breakthrough. So that leaves us with a pretty massive question. If the physics are over 2 centuries old, Stanford totally validated it, and giant grocery stores are saving thousands, why on earth isn't this sitting on the shelves at your local hardware store? Why isn't every new house built with this? Well, the answer comes down to what we call structural invisibility. See, radiative coolers eliminate demand rather than actually producing sellable kilowatts. Because they don't generate power you can measure on a smart meter, they don't qualify for those nice Department of Energy tax credits. Plus, building inspectors literally don't even have a checkbox on their clipboards for them, since it's not standard HVAC or solar. And if you put this on your roof, mortgage appraisers give it zero value on paper. The entire financial system treats this incredible feature as if it doesn't even exist. Honestly, from the big HVAC industry's perspective, this is just a dead-end product. Major manufacturers make their massive profits on complex compressor-based systems. Think about it for a second. Conventional air conditioning requires professional installation, expensive annual maintenance contracts, and you're forced to replace the whole thing every 12 to 20 years. But a radiative panel? It's just metal and paint. There are zero moving parts to break down. That gives the industry absolutely no financial incentive to sell you one. You'd buy it once, it works forever, and they never see a dime from you again.
Part 4. Time for a reality check on the real-world limits. Look, before we all run outside and start building these on our roofs, let's ground this in some reality. This is a powerful scientific tool, sure, but it isn't magic, and it comes with some very real environmental limits. While it works phenomenally well in the dry Southwest, high humidity in places like the Gulf Coast actually starts to close that atmospheric window. The water vapor blocks the infrared escape route, which can drop your cooling performance by a heavy 40 to 60%. Thick cloud cover does the same thing. Also, you need some serious scale. A 1 square meter panel basically gives you the cooling power of a small desk fan. So to fully cool a typical 1,200 square foot house, you're looking at devoting a pretty huge 20 to 40 square meters of roof space. Oh, and remember, this only removes heat. It won't generate any electricity to charge up your solar batteries.
Part 5. How to build your own radiative cooler. And if you actually have the space and live in the right climate, and I know the DIY off-grid community loves a good project, let's walk through exactly how you can build this exact array yourself for under $300. It's surprisingly easy. You just build it up in layers. First, grab a smooth, bare aluminum sheet. Then, you paint it using a standard white acrylic latex paint, but you mix in 10 to 15% titanium dioxide powder. That creates the high emissivity finish, making it super efficient at radiating heat away. Next, you insulate the back of it with foil-faced polyisocyanated foam board so it doesn't suck up the ambient heat from your roof. And finally, stretch some clear polyethylene greenhouse film over the top, leaving a small air gap. That film acts as a convection shield. It blocks warm air from hitting the metal while letting that sweet infrared heat escape straight out into space.
But hey, quick warning here, and this is absolutely crucial if you're planning this out. Stick to bare aluminum or stainless steel. Do not, under any circumstances, use galvanized steel. The zinc coating on galvanized metal breaks down totally unpredictably when it gets hit by UV light and the chemicals in the titanium dioxide. If you use it, it's going to completely ruin the cooling profile of your panel, and you'll just have a warm sheet of metal. When you tally up the costs using standard hardware store prices, the math is just wild. You're looking at a remarkably low $20 to $25 per square meter of cooling surface. And the skills you need? Basically just some minor sheet metal handling and caulking. Honestly, if you know how to use tin snips and a foam paint roller, you absolutely have what it takes to build this whole shebang.
Just zoom out for a second and compare that sub-$300 DIY material cost to what you'd normally pay for alternatives. You're looking at easily $4,000 for an installed mini-split system. Maybe $11,500 if you want a home battery, or a whopping $15,000 to $25,000 for rooftop solar just to power your conventional AC. For pure, sustained, off-grid cooling power, absolutely nothing else on the market even comes close to this on a cost-per-watt basis. So, here's my final question for you to chew on. Since the science is totally proven, the materials are dirt cheap, and the sky literally offers us an infinite free heat sink, which approach would you choose to cool your property this summer? Are you ready to look past the loud, expensive compressor systems and actually tap into the cold of outer space? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other brilliant, ancient physics have we totally forgotten about in our rush to plug absolutely everything into the grid?